Chamge chitab Kalenjin go itagat missing en Kass TV niko tetutiet nebo Betutab Rani. Ngalalet nebo Betutab Rani kemitei eng betunitani oboto tondet nenyo nemato missing ne kiogere eng ketesioni en kasarwek che mangering kengalale tuguk che tesetai eng emet akenai chechang akobo emet nenyo nebo Kenya itagat missing. Bona Ken, chamge ako itagat missing eng Kass TV kengalalchi biik cho chebo Kalenjin. Ikat korok asiketestai.
Chamge biikab Kalenjin. Kiguruna Ken Kigen. Akameshale Happy New Year. The year is still new. Happy New Year.
Asante sana. Happy New Year to you too. It's been long. Imekuwa muda tangu tuweze kuzungumzia mambo kadhaa ambayo yanatuhusu kama taifa, na wewe ni mtu ambaye ni mtu wa kiuchumi, mtaalamu wa mambo ya kiuchumi, mwanabiashara, na unaelewa mambo jinsi yalivyo yanaendelea sasa hivi. Mwaka huu ni mpya sana. Kwanza niweze kusikia from you ni gere letos walak eng this year ne matarajio ya mwaka ni gani?
Thank you very much, Dennis. It's indeed a new year. Indo mwaka ambaye we are transitioning from the honeymoon from the new government. They can have excuse, maybe mwaka ya kwanza they were trying to settle, but sasa we are now getting into the phase where things have to be done. And we are looking forward to so many things. Of course, there's a lot of policy changes in terms of fiscal and monetary policies that the government is trying to implement. I think unajua kama hizo ya the social insurance fund, those things where there of course will be some change in the payslip. Kutakuwa na a bit of more taxation. Of course, we are trying to see how that will play in terms of reflection in the real ground, na kama it will really help the Kenyans. So I know many Kenyans are crying that there's a bit more pain, such that their purchasing power is being reduced. So in terms of reflection, as from the financial or the economic perspective, is that there are so many changes that are happening at once, and many policy changes which we are waiting to see. So I know there are a lot of things that will happen here and there. Yeah, so it's a wait and see if it will result into a positive economic growth. But from the look of things, the president is daring to implement what he promised, despite it being very unpopular. Is really trying to implement what he promised the Kenyans during the campaigns. Katika mambo ya politics, I think we are having a fairly stable political environment for business and other activities to thrive. In terms of education, some things are a bit unsettling, especially with the now roll-up of the transition of the CBC group. So there's a lot in the basket that you're expecting for this year, and maybe for the next 4 years for the government of the day. Yes.
Thank you very much for that insight. Na tuko tunaendelea pengine, jana tumeweza kuangalia kuwa shirika la EPRA imeweza kupunguza bei. Unaangalia petrol, diesel imepunguzwa kwa hadi shilingi 5 kwa lita. Sasa hivi inauzwa around 207 shillings kwa Nairobi. Hiyo ni petrol, inauzwa around 207, na hii inatokana na landing cost ambayo imeweza kupungua. Ile ikiletwa ikishafika hapo kwenye port, unapata kuwa imeweza kupungua ile hela ambazo zinalipiwa pale, na hiyo ndio imefanya iweze kupungua kwa shilingi 5. Je, hii inaonyesha kwamba uchumi unazidi kuimarika, ama mambo ya dunia, ama ni vipi? Ni nini unaweza kuzungumzia kuhusiana na swala hilo?
Yeah, hiyo inaonyesha kwamba the world economy is picking up. last year and maybe from the COVID time, I think the world was in a comatose, and the economy was in a coma, sort of. But post-COVID, we are seeing businesses reopening. We are seeing even ease of transportation of products from overseas countries to other countries. So therefore, there is some flexibility. I think things are coming back to life. And we are expecting that the economy will improve naturally. I think we were from a very serious disaster, but we are seeing that slowly things are picking up. So even some of the indicators, including the reduction in price of the landing cost, which now will mean the reduction in the price of fuel, which will now, of course, mean the cost of business and production will reduce a bit, which will now increase the purchasing power. So it's a positive thing that things are going back. Of course, we expect more. The price will reduce even further, and we expect to see that even in day-to-day activities. Yeah. So for me, it's a good indicator in terms of now focus as the global economy. Of course, it has an impact because you know an economy cannot function independently. So that being the case, we expect and hope that things are going to be much better for Kenya. If at all we are going to manage our you know, they say that a country's economy is more of a liability management. Yeah, you have to find the best way to manage how you run your operations and grow your economy. Yeah, so sort of, but it's a good indicator that things are going back to normal. Yes.
Thank you, asante sana. Wewe kama mtu ambaye aliweza kuwania kiti cha county cha senate ya Elgeyo Marakwet County, na tumai kwamba wewe unaelewa sana kuhusiana na county politics na jinsi ambavyo mambo ilivyo sasa hivi. Tukiingia katika mambo ya devolution, devolution iko namna gani? Matarajio ya devolution hii mwaka tunapokuwa tukianza ni gani? Je, watu wanaenda kupata faida kutokana na mambo ya devolution?
Yeah, kusema kweli, devolution imesaidia sana in terms of trying to bring services closer to wananchi. There are places they had never seen government come close to them. So one of the things ambayo ilikuwa inachangia sana katika the big gap in terms of the balance between the rich and the poor, ilikuwa kwa sababu ya hiyo, there was a breakdown. And for me, kitu ambayo imesaidia sana, there are places they had never seen tarmac and they could never have seen it had it not been for the counties. There are schools that would never have been built were it not because of the county governments. Kuna mahali ambaye hospitali na madawa hazingefika were it not for the counties. So in terms of devolution achieving its intended goal, I think it's doing so. Of course, there is still some challenges in terms of funding, because of course we are a young economy, a growing economy, so we are experiencing that bit of financial crunch here and there. But far and large, I can say that devolution is working. We're just hoping that the economy will pick back to maybe where it was, maybe before COVID. And as such, we expect that counties will even generate more money. Of course, we are looking forward for a time where counties will be independent of the national government in terms of dependency, and where we will have real power and policies and economic growth and stability in the devolved units. You know, as long as we are still experiencing a lot of rural to urban migration, meaning that still economic growth, economic power is still concentrated on some specific places. But we hope that going forward, we are going to experience some growth in small economic devolved units, and that will mean that the growth will be almost universal. Yeah.
Oh,
which will contribute the overall growth. Yeah.
Thank you, asante sana. Mwaka uliopita tuliweza kuangalia kwamba kulikuwa na wale wakilishi wadi ama MCS. MCS walikuwa naomba kukuwe na pesa, waweze kuongezewa pesa. Waliomba mwaka uliopita hadi most of the counties waliweza kusimamisha their functions, waliweza kusimamisha kazi zao, county assemblies kadhaa katika sehemu kadhaa katika taifa hili, wakisema kwamba their welfare iko duni sana, na ikasemekana kwamba wanaenda wanaongea na kufikia mwisho wa mwaka uliopita hakukuwa na any solution ambayo ilikuwa imepatikana. Je, unaona kwamba hii mwaka ndo kunaweza kukawa hivyo? Na pia unasemaje kuhusu mambo ya MCA kuweza kuomba waweze kuongezewa pesa, wakisema kwamba huwezi kuwa unapata hela kama 1,200 na unakuja kwa oversight mtu ambaye anapata zaidi ya milioni 1 ambaye ni governor. Akasema kwamba hiyo hakuna ile balance. Unaweza ukazungumziaje swala hilo?
Kusema kweli hiyo ni swala gumu kabisa. Kwa sababu kuna hiyo mambo ya checks and balance ambayo inafaa ifanyike. But pia wanafaa kutofautisha kwamba one is executive role and the other one is legislative. Of course they work hand in hand. Na hiyo ndo kitu ambayo walikuwa wanasema kuna lacuna. There's a gap in the constitution where of course we add the good intentions, but as they always say, good intentions are never enough. Kwa hivyo what they also need to understand is that we are still growing, we are evolving, and with time some of the things that needs to be improved will be improved. But what I can say for now is that there are so many MCAs, and what the country is trying to do, part of it is to reduce the wage bill. And for them, I think I understand the situation. Having contested, I think the way we run our governance is so different. Wananchi are used to having either handouts, the harambes and the sort of things. Hiyo ni vitu ambaye nadhania inafanya MCS wa feel kwamba wanahitaji hela zaidi. But if we can have a mindset change in the people themselves, such that they don't see these MCAs as they are gods or people for harambes and the likes, I think we will have a better Kenya. And I think it's a whole mindset change that we need. Kwa sababu even the kind of politics that happens, the amount of money that is spent by those leaders to get those seats really contributes so much to the corruption that results from thereafter. Because unapata mtu kama governor, kwa mfano ametumia karibu 700 million kuvai. What do you expect? Because he's someone who gets a salary of around 1 million every month. Even in 12 months, that's like 12 million. In 5 years, that's like 60 million. But you see, they are doing that, and they are even willing to do anything to get that seat. Kwa sababu, the amount of money they'll get, the amount of deals they get through it is so monumental that they are willing to do anything. And that's why you see a lot of pilferage in terms of resources from the counties. And you can see corruption is becoming a monster, because I think we it's something that we grow it from the base. We start, you know, I think as they say, things never go wrong, things start wrong. And I think that's so true to the kind of leaders that we have. But I feel for them. For you now to get even an MCA seat, you need quite some amount of money. And even when they're there, I can tell you, before an MCA wakes up, or by around 8 in the morning, he has already had a lot of visitors and calls, you know, trying to ask for some contribution, you know. So it's a lot of work that needs some change, and it's a mindset change. Yeah. So I understand them, but I think it's a situation that we need to walk through it. I asked them, maybe, I don't know, we will survive through it and see the best way, but corruption has to end through one way or the other. Yeah.
Rais alizungumza wiki iliyopita na alizungumza akisema kwamba katika alikuwa Uasin Gishu pale katika kanisa Kamagut, na alizungumzia kuhusiana na mambo ambayo inaletwa katika jamii. Aliweza kusema kwamba shida ya Kenya sasa hivi ni deni. Alisema kwa kila shilingi 10 ambayo serikali inapata, shilingi 7 inaenda katika kulipia madeni. Na tumeangalia pia kwanza kuwa japo anazidi kulipia madeni, pia niliona communication kutoka timu yake jana kusemekana kwamba atakuwa akielekea hii wiki katika taifa la Italia kutafuta pesa za projects ambazo zimeweza kusimama, aweze kuomba pesa za projects ambazo zimeweza kusimama pale Italy, na pia atakuwa na safari ambazo atakuwa akizunguka kuweza kutafuta pesa. So hiyo pesa ambayo inatafutwa pia ni deni. Pele ukiangalia ni deni, na president alikuwa anazungumza akisema kwa kila shilingi 10, shilingi 7 inaenda kwa deni. So ni kama pia tunaelekea ikuwe shilingi 8 kwa ambayo inaenda kwa deni, shilingi 2 peke yake inakuwa ya mishahara ya kila kitu ambayo inahitajika pale maendeleo na hiyo yote. Wewe kama mtu ambaye ni mtaalamu wa kiuchumi na ambaye unatambua hii mambo venye inaenda. Je, hii hali ya kuzidi kutafuta za deni, ni vipi ambavyo taifa letu la Kenya linaweza likaendelea mbele na kupunguza madeni ambazo ziko nayo, ama na kuhakikisha kwamba hatutegemei sana madeni?
Asante sana Dennis kwa swala hilo. I think that's the biggest discussion that we're having as a nation. Kwa sababu kila mtu anauliza hii madeni tutafikia mwisho lini? One of the things I would want to credit the president is by daring something that nobody has dared to do. Ukiangalia hapo hawali, even in the previous government, kulikuwa na a lot of policies that were in place ambaye ingefaa itekelezwe, so that you know, every milestone you have to adjust. But you find they never did it. So tukaendelea kuomba. We continued with the borrowing, but it has reached a place where we can no longer borrow. So I think one of the things he's doing is trying to do what we call debt restructuring. Hii ni ambaye unaomba deni kulipa deni. There are some debts which are due. Kwa hivyo inafaa ilipwe, because if you don't pay you will default. So he has to borrow some money to pay the money while continuing with these projects. So that's one of the things that he's trying to do. But I think that is just as a short-term goal, to ensure that the projects don't stall, while at the same time we don't default. So that's why this week he'll be going to Italy to look for investors, to continue with the stalled projects, mostly water projects. On the issue of whether we are going to get out of the rat race, there are some very brave policies which is bringing in place. And for me, you know, they are so brave and so scary for anyone to try and implement them, because they are very unpopular. for example, is one of the things that people first need to understand is that when we are borrowing from a country like China or Italy, you know, we are borrowing money which they have saved themselves. It's money from savings of the people of that nation. So what he's trying to do is now trying to make us save. You know, that is why he's intending to increase savings from the minimum was 200 shillings, the NSSF to now 6%. That's such a huge change, you know, and you know, it's not resonating with so many people. You know, this is like someone who has never been going to the gym, and then you are enrolling in the gym, and then you have to start with like 50 push-ups. So it's such a huge change that's happening at once. But what do we need to do? Because at the end of the day, something has to be done. And some of those things might be, you know, they might be so scary as it is. They might be very unpopular as they are, but I don't think there's any other way out. Someone just has to dare something that has never been done. Otherwise, if we continue the same way, there's no much that we are going to achieve as a nation. So I just hope once we, because you see is increasing, the NSSF will be 6%, and then we have 2.5 for the NHIF, and then we have the 1.5% from the housing levy. That makes almost cumulatively to around 10%. That's going to be deducted from the salaries, in addition to the around 30% thereabout of the tax. So for me, what I think is thinking something very positive, because at the end of the day, that's what countries like Singapore, if we think like Singapore, then we have to act like Singapore. If we think like North Korea, we have to act like them. And what do? That's the kind of things they do. Because if you see for a country like Kenya, our cumulatively national saving as a ratio of GDP is around 12%. The countries that we are looking at or that we aspire to be like are saving almost 40–50% as an aspect of their GDP. So those are very brave measures according to me. I know they are very unpopular, but I hope at the end of the day, once this is done, the monies are going to be well taken care of. Because I think there was an imbalance in terms of you could see there's a lot of growth in the private sector. The private insurances are really booming. That's because there was no longer trust in the public institutions. So, but if we can get it right in the public institutions, such that I know when I'm saving my 6%, I know that when I retire, you know, I will not have to go to court to demand my savings, pension and the likes. Because you see, there are people who retired almost 5 years now, and they've not been paid their pension. So those are some of the injustices. That's why you could see some resistance from, you know, from people in civil servants, people going to court. Not that the intention is bad, but it's because there is no trust in the public institutions. So I think even as the president is trying to implement all these good policies and trying to take us to the promised land, he also needs to take care of the things which are causing people to have jitters in trying to, you know, it's like universal suffrage. So even as you're trying to take us along with you, you need answers that we are not doing it in vain. So for me, I think is doing well, or rather is sounding very rational and having good intentions. But as I said, good intentions are not enough. We need to see him act. Another thing he needs to do, I think he needs to tame his incompetent cabinet secretaries. Because you can't be the one. I know, of course, he's taking the liability in terms of managing the economic crisis. But you see, you can't be giving hope, saying that we are trying to manage affairs, and then your cabinet secretary on the other hand is coming to say that, you know, we are in a very bad state. Because, you know, the kind of people, for example, of the caliber of a cabinet secretary for treasury, you know, those positions are very sentimental. Any sentiments he utters is very consequential to money market, to investors, to everything. So at the end of the day, he needs to tame them such that they need to understand that whatever they say has a very big implication. For example, I really wonder what the treasury for CS intended by just coming out in public and saying that we are in a very bad state, we don't have anything in coffers. You know, what are you trying to tell the investors? What is the effect in money markets, you know? And those things are very sentimental. Any words is directly proportional to the effect, you know? It's like Bitcoin. Any small word you say about it or against it determines whether there's a growth, there's almost immediate withdrawals. And for me, that was so scary. I think he needs to manage liability with his team so that it doesn't appear like it's one-sided. Yeah. So I think that's one of the things he needs to do. But what he's intending to do is, I think he's being in his element. Just as he was campaigning, you know, you could hear him campaign, and there are things he uttered that looked and sounded like just a dream. But I think he's just being in his element, having spoken things that looked crazy, and now daring to try and implement those things that are now crazier. I think he's just being in his element. I wish him the very best, but he needs to act from his both sides, so that it doesn't appear like, you know, he's on different walls from his people who are helping him manage the situation. Yeah.
Thank you very much Bwana Ken kuhusiana na hilo. Nilikuwa na swali ambalo ningependa kuuliza na pia hiyo inahusika na mambo ambayo yanaendelea katika taifa la Kenya. Na kukiwa na issue ya madeni ambayo kila siku tunasikia kwamba inaongelewa kwamba hiyo ndio shida. Kuna njia ambayo tunaweza tukafanya kuhakikisha kwamba pengine tuseme let's suspend every development, every new project for 1 year. Let's complete tumalize ile ambayo tumeweza tulianza. Hiyo ni number 1 ambayo ilishaanzishwa. Number 2, hakikisha tumelipa deni ambayo iko pale for 1 year. We suspend every other thing. Let's pay salaries and pay debts. Alafu the next year we start now the development. Is there that way, though iko unpopular because kila mtu anasema nataka hii. Je, mnapofika katika ama hii inaweza kuwa solution economically ama hiyo ni ndoto?
Ni swali mzuri sana. Kusema kweli Bwana Dennis, hiyo ni jambo ambalo halitawezekana. Kwa lugha ya uchumi mambo ya ekonomia, hiyo haitawezekana kabisa. Kwa sababu hata ukijaribu kuangalia deni ambayo tuko nayo, we have a debt of almost 10 trillion. You know, our annual budget inakuanga around trillion 3. But look at the amount of revenue that you get in a year. We almost get a revenue of 2 trillion. Pesa ambayo inaenda kwa development is merely around 500 billion. Hii ni pesa ambayo hata tukiamua tubaki nayo haitatusaidia. But in economics kuna kuanga na kitu ambayo inaitwa saving versus investment. Kuna kitu ambayo inaitwa multiply effect, ambaye ukiinvest ama ukiweka hiyo 500 billion in developments, it generates more. That's why every year we have a growth in GDP. Kwa sababu pesa kidogo ambayo tuko nayo tumeinvest na imetupea mingi zaidi. So being in being in a comatose, taking ourselves to a comatose state, like we were maybe during COVID, where things were not moving, there were layoffs, you know, the economy was in state of coma, will not work. So we have no option. The only option that we have is to work extra hard, get more taxes, get people to work extra more than they are working already. But there's no any other alternative of trying to sit down and maybe save the little that we have. Another alternative, which is the most unlikely, is for us to default. We go back to default settings, and then we now call all the people who given us the debt, and then we start renegotiating from scratch. I don't think that will be the best. So I think the other only alternative that we have is to try and survive in between. Yes.
Try and survive. Thank you. Tukiweza kuingilia kwa mambo ya masomo, mambo ya education, kidogo tuweze kuangalia sekta ya masomo. Na watu wengi sasa hivi walimaliza form 4, wengine wakamaliza class 8, wanaendeleza transition katika masomo ambayo inaendelea hadi kufikia sasa hivi. Unaweza kuzungumza nini kuhusiana na mambo ama sekta ya elimu?
Jambo ambalo ningependa kusema, we are doing good. What I can say, what I can credit the president, if nothing at all, ni kwamba is daring to do what many people would not have done. Kwa sababu una realize time changes, na wakati muda inabadilika pia, you need to change with it. So the 844 system, I think it came to a time where it's no longer relevant in our generation and in the generation that is coming, the future generation. So by just daring to implement it in the bad situation that we are in, is a step in the right direction. Mambo ambaye for us that the 844 system that we underwent, you know, it was more of serving or feeding the market that needed workforce. But you realize now it's not just the workforce that pays. You realize there are skills that people need to learn. We realize at the end of the day, there are some skills that we don't have as a nation, or rather the skills that the education was feeding us with. Some of it was no longer relevant. It was more theoretical, and we needed more practical. You know, that's why you find most of the roads are being made by international investors and the likes, because we didn't have the skills. And then as well, in terms of innovation, you realize that the curriculum that we had did not factor in growth in technology, which is now a major economic factor. You know, when we were in campus in economics, you know, at our time, we used to learn the major factors of production as being land, labor, and capital. But you find that technology has come and it has really changed everything. For now, technology is like the major economic factor that we really need to inculcate as a nation. I think we really are doing good in terms of trying to get those, the peer, or rather the more advanced technological companies coming to Kenya, so that they can, you know, train our people, so that we can get acclimatized to it. But I would rather encourage the government to still continue investing in, you know, I think the economic zones are so good in terms of providing environment where small industrialization, small industries can be, you know, can be brought up, and small companies nurtured. Because at the end of the day, we have to learn. You know, we can't learn to maybe make cars if we didn't learn how to make toys. You get, so we have to start from the lowest as we can. Of course, there are things that we've been lucky. For example, putting M-Pesa innovation out there to the world. That was so brilliant of us, and you know, such I believe ideas are being nurtured more with now the new CBC, which is more of skill-based, you know, kind of curriculum. And for me, I think we are doing good. I really like the fact that we started just as we are. Of course, there are so many reasons to back down on the CBC, but I know eventually we'll see the effect many years to come. I know there are challenges in terms of government funding it, but I think we'll just get through it. Yeah, we are in the right direction.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Naangalia muda wangu unazidi kuyoyoma. Sijui pengine tukiwa tunamalizia ungependa kuzungumza vipi ama kuelezea vipi wale watu ambao wanatutazama siku ya leo tukiwa tunakamilisha kipindi?
Ningependa niambie Wakenya wazidi kuwa na tumaini. Nchi ni yetu sisi sote. Na kila mtu ana jukumu ya kuhakikisha kwamba as the wise man said that we are building trees whose shade we will never enjoy ama live under. So there are sacrifices that we have to make as a nation, both individually and collectively, for the benefit or for the growth of our nation. Countries like America, you know, let's talk of Singapore, you know, it's there because of some of the people who really gave themselves to real change and service of their nation, and they are being recognized even now. So I want to encourage every Kenyan to wake up every day and try to do something that it will not impact even their children. It will impact their great-grandchildren. So we all have the chance and the capacity, and yeah, we should not feel less entitled. We should not feel like leadership is for a certain clique of people. We should not feel, you know, should not be blaming. I think just like Ezekiel Mutua said, there's some age that you get, you no longer have to blame the background. You become the background yourself. So I think we should all aspire to be that background where we are now the real change. We are in our small spaces, in our jobs, you know, we should aspire to be the real change that we so desire for our nation. And I think with that, we will be good. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Asante sana. That is a very powerful parting shot. Na tanigai moiwech eng garonet nebo Rani. Receive greetings from people from Elgeyo Marakwet. Kufikie, and nasema asante sana for your time. Until next time, we will meet and do more of this. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chitap kalenyin kageit let nebo ngalalet nebo Betutab Rani kemitei ak Ken Kigen. He's a very popular figure. Much inyoru korang social media ko Ken Kigen siger tuguk chetesetai inendet in the field nebo technology eng siger ile ne nimite ko miten kamasta noto ak tuguk cheborye inendet. Kongoi missing akobo ngalalet noton nebo Betutab Rani. Kageit let nekata director nenyu Victor Bet, mjamakun kiy age tugul nemie. Kainenyu ko Dennis Arap Kemboi.